everyone, this is Crystal, and I'm back with another 12 by 12 layout using one of the scrapbook.com cut files. This is the last cut file post I have for you from scrapbook.com. So if you're tired of seeing cut files, no worries, I'll be back to normal very soon. However, if you want to see more cut files, be sure to let me know in the comments because I have lots more I can share with you if that's what you're interested in. So this is the borders cut file that I'm working with today, and I've decided to create a tree. So I have these photos of my niece. I have the one good photo that I got of her last Christmas, and then 4 of the outtakes from our little photo shoot that I put into a photo strip. I did this in Photoshop, but there are lots of free programs out there that you can do the same thing with. I printed those out, one at 4 by 6, and then these are about an 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches. And then I have cut the, this is the short fringe from the borders cut file, and this is the 8-inch one. So you get 3 different versions of each of the borders in the borders cut file. There's a 5.5 inch, an 8-inch, and a 12-inch. This is the 8-inch one, and I've cut it from 2 green papers. Neither of these are Christmas papers. This one is from Along the Way, and this one is from Chamel's Head in the Clouds. But I couldn't find green papers that I liked for my Christmas stash, so I just dipped into my regular stash and found these 2 to work with. And you'll never know that they weren't Christmas papers once my page is finished. So if you don't have a lot of Christmas stash, be sure to look at your other papers and find ones that will work. You know, there'll be lots of reds in Valentine's papers. There's lots of greens in lots of different collections. So I'm sure you have things in your stash, even if you don't have a large collection of Christmas specific items. So that's just a little tip for you. So I've cut a few of each of these 2 papers of that small fringe at the 8-inch width, and then I've also cut a triangle. So this paper is from the 12 by 12 paper pad of Cozy and Bright, which is last year's Pebbles collection. I just wanted something green that could sit behind these little pieces of fringe. So I'm going to attach these to this as my base. I just wanted to make sure that if you could see the base behind it, that it wouldn't be white, that it would be green. You can see I need to clean up this cut file a little bit before I get started. But so I just cut a triangle. I sized it on my page based on how big my photos were. I'm going to use a white background. So that is what my fringe is going to be attached to. And then I also cut one of the borders at 12 inches. This is the one with hearts in it. This is another paper from that last year's Pebbles collection, Cozy and Bright, from the 12 by 12 pad. Again, I just was looking for something that would work with the colors. You can see she has a red dress on. So I wanted to bring in a little bit of red. And I'll be using mostly the Pinkfresh Studio Home for the Holidays collection, but there wasn't a solid red paper in here that I liked as a border. So that's why I used this one from last year. Okay, so that is my plan. I'm planning to have this heart border at the top of the page. I may add another border at the bottom, and then I'm going to turn this into a fringe tree. Yeah, so I am going to go away and clean up these cut files just a little bit and then come back and put the whole thing together. Okay, so I decided to go ahead and add all the fringe to the tree off camera just because it was a little fiddly and it took quite a while to get all of these adhered. But I'll tell you how I did it. I just added a little strip of red line tape to the solid part of each of the little fringe pieces and then overlapped them so that the fringe of the next one met up with where the last one ended. And I tried my best to keep them straight. It's not perfect by any means. It's not perfectly straight. There are some little chunks that kind of got cut off as I trimmed off the sides. But I was able to get that entire tree covered with those few that I had cut out. I was starting to worry about halfway through that I didn't cut out enough, but I did, and it worked. So that is going to be the tree on my page, and then I have the photo, and then I think I'll just overlap these over here, something like that, and then I have my border at the top as well. So I can now finish this page. So I'm going to put you on fast forward and do the embellishing. So to be honest, at this point in my layout, I had no idea what I wanted to do with the rest of this page. So I decided to start by just going through the ephemera pack that came with the Home for the Holidays collection and see what was there and see if it sparked any ideas for how to finish this page. I knew that I wanted to stick to a pretty traditional color scheme. So there's lots of blue in this collection, but I'm going to kind of avoid that as much as I can. There will be just little tiny bits of blue, but I'm mostly trying to stick with green and red with some pops of yellow as well. So I'm going through and pulling out anything that I think will work with that color scheme. I'm also thinking about where I'm going to put my date. I don't really have any journaling to add to this page. If I decide to add any, I'll probably just write it on the back. But I don't really need a large journaling spot. I just need some place so I can add the year. So I pulled out a few things that I thought might work, and then I just decided to pull out all the rest of the embellishments that I have, so the cardstock stickers, the puffy stickers, and the mixed embellishment pack, and just see what's there and see if any of it gave me any ideas for how to proceed. So I did that. I looked through everything. I decided that before I start really pulling any of these other things out, I need to get the background of my page adhered. So I'm going to add a strip of each of the green papers that I used for my tree to the top and the bottom. I'm using the lighter one at the top. That's the Jen Hadfield Along the Way one. And then I'm using this darker one from Chamel at the bottom. And I'm also going to add a strip of that same kind of candy cane stripe from the Cozy and Bright collection from Pebbles. I just used the little bit that got cut off at the top of the page when I cut my border strip. That seemed like the perfect width, so I just grabbed that off of my cutting mat and I've added it to the bottom. And this is where you'll see me completely struggle to get these border strips level on the page, or even. I can't get them straight. I don't know why I was having so much trouble. I'm going to blame it on that candy cane stripe. I think it was messing with my eyes somehow, but I had a really hard time getting them straight. So I will try, I think, 3 times to get the bottom one straight when I start to actually adhere it to the page. Here is where I realized I didn't get it straight the first time and tried to trim off a little bit of it, and then I took out my trimmer to try and trim off a little bit more, thinking that certainly got it straight, but no, when I go to adhere it down, it definitely was not straight, so you'll see me struggle a bit again. Oh, and first, I think my trimmer maybe needs a new blade. It did not trim very well, so I ended up having to cut off some of the excess there, but that wasn't any big deal, and I can get a new blade for that pretty easily. So I'm going to go through the papers as well, still looking for kind of a direction for this page. I know I need something to back up my photos. I don't want them to sit directly on that white background. I want there to be a little bit of color around them, so I'm looking for something to add to each of the photos as a mat. And then I also pulled out that paper with all of the presents. I thought maybe I'll just fill the bottom of the page with fussy cut presents from that paper. So I'm going to mat my larger photo on that red paper, but because I had a white border around the little photo strip I created, I wanted to be sure to add a white border around this one as well. So again, I struggled to get it straight. I don't know what was happening this day, but eventually I get it close enough and am able to just add it to this red paper to use as just a really thin border. I don't want it to take up too much space, and I don't want it to draw your eye too much, but I just want there to be some separation between the white border on my photo and the white background. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing with the photo strip using this green paper. You can see I've already used this paper for another project. This is just a little scrap that's left, but that's perfect for matting a photo. And I didn't want too much of that that pattern on the paper to show, so I strategically placed my photo strip so that it would be more solid on each side of it, and then trimmed around it like that. Okay, so nothing is glued to the background still, and I went back to playing with embellishments, trying to make sure that before I glued anything down, I got it in the right place, so that if I was going to have a cluster on top of my photo, then I didn't want to place my photo too high on the page. But if I wasn't going to, if I was just going to fill that bottom blank space, then I needed to make sure it was low enough that it wouldn't be too hard to fill that space. So I'm just kind of playing around and making sure that I get my spacing exactly how I want it to be. So you can see I have that Merry and Bright. I want to use that as my title. It's a die cut from the ephemera pack, and that's going to be my title. It ends up moving down below my my tree, and it's going to act as kind of the tree stand, and then also be the title for the page. But right now I'm thinking I'll add it kind of to the middle and use that string of lights, but that changes. Of course it changes as I keep going. So here is where I decide to go ahead and start fussy cutting all of these presents out. I don't make you watch all of this. I cut quite a few because I'm thinking I want to fill that whole bottom white space with presents. So I start with my large scissor. I end up using my We Are Memory Keepers detail scissors to finish those. They are my new fussy cutting favorites. So, but again, I didn't make you watch that. It's all cut out now, and I can start actually adhering things to the page. So I had added that bottom strip and I cut off the excess, and then I look at it and it is not even close to straight. So I pull it back off and I try again and end up having to trim off a little bit more from the bottom. Eventually I get it close enough that I can live with it because I was really just tired of trying to get it straight at that point. Yeah, but it's fine. In the end, it's totally fine. Do the same thing with the top. I try a little bit harder this time to keep it straight, and I think it worked. I don't have to tear this one off, thank goodness. I'm able just to trim off a little bit that was hanging off the side, and then call my border done. And then next up, I'm going to adhere my tree. I decide to adhere the tree directly to the page just using some scrapbook.com roller adhesive. This is strong enough that it's going to hold it to the page. It's not going to go anywhere. And I'm thinking at this point that I want to add some foam behind my photos. So that means that the tree is going to need to be flat since my photo is overlapping it quite a bit. So I'm using just some regular fun foam. This is just like kids craft foam that has adhesive on one side. You can get it at any big box store. Using that behind my photo and just adding some roller adhesive to stick it down to the page. I'm going to do the same thing with the photo strip, except just add it to the one side because it's overlapping my photo, so it doesn't need any more dimension on that side. So they sit level with each other on the page, the photos do. And then finally, I can start adding all the little bits and pieces back. So I really like that tiny little tree that was from the die cut pack off to the side of my photo. And I added a little dimensional embellishment next to it that's a candy cane. I like the pop of red that brought to that side of the page. And then there are my little bundles of presents. I had lost one, so I had to go searching for it, but I found it, and I cut them strategically so that I would have a mixture of colors on each side. So there's some dark green, some red, some pink, and some lighter ones that are kind of a grayish color. I wanted there to be some variation in color and for them to feel balanced on either side of the page. So I like the way that looks. You can see I've moved my title down below the tree. Like I said, that's going to kind of end up looking like a tree stand. I will add another little sentiment strip there to finish off that look. And then I can start just gluing down all these little present bundles on either side of my title. I am being careful to make sure that the spacing is appropriate. So I don't want there to be any trapped white space between any of the elements on my page. So I moved up the present on the right side to make sure that there wasn't a line of white space below my photo. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side. I moved it up a little bit to make sure that you could still read the title, but that there wasn't any white space above or below any of the little presents. So got that spacing exactly how I wanted it, and now I can move on to embellishing the rest of the page. I am adding a little sticker above that tree that says Merry Christmas, and when I pulled it off the page, the backing actually came off with it, so it's not sticky yet, which works for me because I wasn't entirely sure I was keeping it there just yet. So that way I can move it around if I decide to. I also added a candy cane to the left side of the tree to match the one that's on the right side, and I added a little circle sticker that says Joy to fill in that white space between my two photos and the presents. I've also went back to this little string of lights, and I'm going to move it over to the right side to kind of bridge the gap between that cluster beneath the large photo and the cluster to the right of my photo strip, and that fills in that space perfectly without adding too much visual weight. I'm also adding a label to the top of the large photo. That is where my date is going to go. So I've added that label and one of the little tabs from the ephemera pack. I think it says Twinkle. It's gray, so it's not taking up too much visual weight at the top of my photo. I think that works well as a little cluster. And then again, just looking through the rest of the items, trying to decide what else I can add to this page. I actually ended up adding quite a bit more than I normally do to pages. It's a little bit busier maybe than some of my pages are, but I just wanted to make this page fun and cute and really go well with the photos, which are of my adorable niece and her funny faces as we were trying to do a little photo shoot. So I've added a couple of the enamel circles that were from the mixed embellishment pack. I'm going to add 3 total to the page in a visual triangle around my photos. Just trying to keep that, design principle in mind as I work through this page. I'm also adding a few enamel dots to each cluster, again in a visual triangle around my photos. And I'm also adding them in groups of 3, so 1 enamel shape or enamel circle, and then 2 enamel dots in each one, with the exception of the top one above the tree, which is kind of like a spray of light around that star that I've added to the top, which is from the puffy sticker sheet. So I've been trying to figure out what to do at the top of the page. I felt like it needed a little something, but I struggled to figure out what to add there. Eventually I'm going to add one of the dimensional embellishments. I had thought about adding that banner from the ephemera pack, but then I would have had Merry Christmas twice on the page, and I didn't really want to do that. So I ended up going with the dimensional embellishment. And then I'm going to add my date to that little tab, and then that's going to be it for this page. Off camera, I do ruffle up the fringe on the tree just so it gives it a little bit more dimension, and you can tell that it's loose on the page and not just one solid piece. Okay, so that is it for the page. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this. Be sure to check out the cut file from scrapbook.com. That's linked below, as are all of the supplies that I've used in this page. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you back here soon.